So a lot has happened in the first day of the free agent tampering window. So what that means is the tampering window is where you are allowed to discuss, and when I say you, players are allowed to discuss with the teams that they want to meet with, want to sign with, want to do whatever with. They have the 48 hours before the season starts. So Wednesday at noon, the new season officially starts. Monday, so today at noon Eastern, they can verbally agree on deals or commit to deals. No pen and paper can hit ink. No ink can hit the paper until Wednesday, 12 Eastern. So these are all verbal agreements subject to change. We ran into this problem last season with, I believe, Milton Williams with the Patriots because he was supposed to go to the Cardinals or something. I don't know. There was like some discrepancy with his deal, but because, we don't know what was going to happen with it. So we're talking about this now. If something changes, if contracts change, if longevity change, if incentives change, if all that stuff changes, it's because no pen has hit paper. Obviously, extensions are different because when you extend, but we'll get there when we get there. So there's been a lot of teams that have been doing a lot of shopping, a lot of active marketing, a lot of everything. One thing that I will say is a lot of teams have addressed a lot of good free agent needs. And there's some teams that have done nothing. Obviously, this website is not updated with everything because we still have news coming out as the day progresses. I just want to make this a little bit smaller so it fits properly. Sorry. It's like not flush and it's bothering me. Well, I guess that's just how it is. That's fine. Let's change that. There we go. Anyway, fine. This is kind of weird music, but no, I just want like 1% volume. There we go. Just hardly anything. Anyway. Sorry, this is my first time without doing it without someone, so I'm like trying to add the music, so there's other noise. So forgive me for being a little iffy on everything. So there's been a lot of money moved around today. As you can see here, $2.2 billion worth of free agent signings. Huge. And there's been teams that have been very active, and there's teams that haven't been very active. So I want to talk to you about stuff that I think is good, stuff that I think is not so good, and then we're going to do a mock draft. And, Kai Guy was supposed to be here with me. Like I said, he's got his own stuff going on. So we're just going to have to take it as the information comes. But right now, it is what it is. So the biggest agreed to contract has been Jalen Phillips going from the Eagles to the Panthers. Jalen Phillips is a guy I'm super, super high on. At his time in Miami, he has had super, super great production at Miami. He tore his Achilles popped, I believe, in 2023 is what it was. And he was having a very great season. I want to look at his let me look at his injuries. Yeah, so his Achilles in 2023, and then he had a knee injury in 2024. I believe it was an ACL. I'm not entirely sure. I believe it was an ACL. Anyway, but he was traded to Philadelphia where he got a lot of play time. He was very, very productive in his time there. So everyone thought of him as being this, comeback story of free agency because, he's a former first round pick. He's a former, he had, I think, double-digit sack numbers one season. I want to look at his stats. Jalen Phillips stats. But we can look at this together. Yeah, so in that 2023 year, he had one pick and 6.5 sacks where he blew his Achilles, and he had one sack in the 2024 year where he hurt his knee. Last season, a combined 5 sacks. Obviously not as productive. But when you're coming off 2 injuries like that, his numbers aren't all about sacks. He's got a super high motor. He's very versatile. He can play linebacker. He can play pure edge. He can play inside defensive line. He's a really good player. So I think that his place within the Panthers' future is very much solidified. They want a guy who can kind of be that everything defensive anchor, because when they faced the Rams in the playoffs, that Panthers offense had a shot to win. But that's not, they needed something else. They needed another, defensive stud. And this is it. This is it for them. And the Panthers are also in play for Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd being one of the top free agent linebacker prospects. They have the Bengals, the Saints, and the Panthers all interested in Devin Lloyd. That news has yet to come out yet, so we'll be waiting on that. Alec Pierce was the biggest free agent name in the wide receiver market. He signed a $114 million deal with the Colts, and people expected him to leave to go to the Patriots. Some said the Raiders, some said the 49ers, some said the Dolphins. There was a lot of movement around Alec Pierce because of his great season, but the Colts wanted to bring him back. He had a career season. He was a 1,000-yard receiver, and everyone loved Alec Pierce in that system. He performed really well with Daniel Jones. So yeah, in trying to resign Daniel Jones and trying to get something done with him, they're like, okay, let's lock down this target who performed really well under him. In a corresponding move, the Steelers then traded for Michael Pittman, and they took on a pretty heavy salary. Michael Pittman's contract is not cheap. So in addition to DK Metcalf being traded to the Steelers last season and signing a 4-year, $120 million contract extension, they traded for Michael Pittman and he signed a 3-year, almost $60 million contract. So there was a lot of movement in that realm. And then on top of that, you have the Colts, who still haven't found a number for Daniel Jones. He's currently under a transition tag. And with how the free agent market is currently shaping, there's not a whole lot of QBs to go after. The Colts have lost some defensive players, so there's a lot of moving pieces right now in Indianapolis. I'm just gonna go down the list of value, and I'll pick out some guys that I think are maybe good signings, maybe not so good signings. I like the Jalen Phillips signing. Like I said, I like Jalen Phillips. That's just a little bit too much money for me for a guy who is 26, turning 27 next year, has torn his Achilles, and has also had a knee injury and has not been the same in productivity ever since. He's good. He's a very flashy player. I like it. It's just too much money. And then it's kind of taken them out of the race for Devin Lloyd, a guy who had mutual interest in going to Carolina, but obviously Carolina can only pay him so much money because they gave all this money to Devin Lloyd. Now, Alec Pierce signing, I think, is way too much. I think every time the first receiver of the free agency gets signed, I think it's always too much. I think it's always too much money, because we look at T. Higgins. And when T. Higgins and Jamar Chase signed their essentially joint deal together to be back with the Cincinnati Bengals, everyone called T. Higgins an overpay. If I'm the average NFL fan, I'm going to look at Alec Pierce and T. Higgins and be like, well, T. Higgins is better. T. Higgins is currently being paid for less than what Alec Pierce just signed an extension for. And that's not a knock on Alec Pierce. I think he's a good player. But I'm taking T. Higgins 10 days out of 10 and twice on Sundays. That's just the reality of the situation. So it's good that you brought your guy and you kept him home. You also gave up a ton of money. A ton of money that's going to limit you in your future. Anyway, let's move on. Odafe Owo, I think that's how you pronounce his name. Owe. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He signed a 4-year, $100 million deal with the Commanders. I love this. The Commanders have needed a premier edge rusher for a long time. This is that get. This will be a huge, huge boost for that defense. It'll take a lot of pressure off of a linebacker core that is old. It'll take a lot of pressure off of these defensive tackles who can actually start doing their job a little bit more. This is really going to be good for the Commanders. One thing that I think is happening is they're probably going to draft a linebacker. So having a rookie linebacker and maybe a very old linebacker. I think Bobby Wagner might be a free agent, or if not, he's under contract for one more year in Washington. Bobby Wagner's fucking old. So that's, that we got to remember that. I love this signing. I think this is great for the Commanders. They got themselves a true defensive playmaker. Awesome. Tyler Linderbaum is the best center in football right now. This is a fantastic signing by the Raiders to get someone who could be a cornerstone of this entire offensive unit at $25 million a year is a lot of money. Especially because Creed Humphrey was the most expensive center in the NFL at $18 million a year. Not that I think this is an overpay. I think Tyler Linderbaum is one of the best offensive linemen in the entire NFL. This is a amazing get because they also have Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, who will be a second-year man. Second or third. Maybe third year. Either way, still on his rookie contract, who has been playing center for them. They can shift him back to his guard position, which is natural for him. This Genty, the Genty usage is going to soar. The Genty production is going to soar. Fernando Mendoza is going to be put behind the best center and the best offensive lineman, and he's going to have protection up the middle, something that we saw him succeed with in Indiana because of Coogan, his center. I think this is fantastic. The Raiders are doing everything right in this offseason. Clint Kubiak came in and he said, this is how we're building this culture. And he's establishing a winning program. And I love that. I love that so much out of Clint Kubiak. Wan'Dale Robinson from the Giants to the Titans. I like this signing, getting Cam Ward, a veteran wide receiver who has proven himself this season. Fantastic. Paying him $78 million, not something I'm very excited in. I think it's a lot of money. And I get it. Alec Pierce went for 114, and you're telling me that the next highest wide receiver so far got signed at $78 million? Yes, I think it's an overpay. I like Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's electric. I think he's got something special about him, and I think he's really, really good as a blanket for these young quarterbacks. We saw Jackson Dart be able to throw with him. We saw Russell Wilson throw well with him. I really like it. It's just a little bit too much money for me. Malik Willis to the Dolphins. I think everyone kind of expected this when Tua was benched, and then they were out on Tua. This was kind of expected that the Dolphins would go ahead and get the number one quarterback in this free agency class. Honestly, for how Malik Willis performed, because he did show, he showed a lot of flashes in Jordan Love's absence in Green Bay. He showed that he still has it, and that the Titans just couldn't, him and the Titans just couldn't figure it out, However, this is a guy who was a second-round quarterback, I believe, if I'm... Malik Willis was the 86th overall pick, so a third-round quarterback. Third-round quarterback expected to help the Titans out in their transition after Ryan Tannehill. And he did not succeed in Tennessee. He looked horrid in Tennessee. You get him in Green Bay, he's got a couple decent plays, and then you really see him when Love goes through with his leg injury, and he's really starting to shine. He's making a lot of good throws. He's making a lot of good plays. But you also need to remember something. This unit that the Packers had this past season in the offensive line, miles better than what Tennessee currently has. Not to mention the wide receiver difference is huge. Because obviously, you see Wan'Dale Robinson, and I just raved about Wan'Dale Robinson, but then you look at the Packers, and last season they had Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs being now one of the premier free agent wide receivers because of his performance last year. So there was a lot of things that went into the Packers being successful outside of the quarterback play, which was able to help. And also, we saw more rushing success out of Green Bay, obviously not to the extent that we normally see with Josh Jacobs, who had a very bad down year this season. But when we look at the Titans, unless they draft Jeremiah Love, they won't have that same rushing success because they're also behind worse O-line play. And I'm not like pulling this from stats or anything. I'm talking about my eyes. I watched a lot of football last season. I'm talking about my eye test, what I saw, what I think. If the numbers are like, well, this says differently, okay, that's great. I'm talking about what I see with my own two eyes. At the end of the day, nothing fails the eye test. Like I said, I knew this was going to happen. This is a good signing. It's just way too much money. But I congratulate all these guys who got their payday. Because, dude, if that's me, I'm going somewhere where that offers me the most money. I don't give a fuck. If I can get money, then I can get money. So, mad respect to all these guys. John Franklin Myers, standout defensive lineman from the Broncos last season, signed a $63 million deal across 3 years with the Titans. Titans were very active on this first day of free agency. We'll talk about them a lot more. This is a fantastic get. Pairing him next to Jeffrey Simmons is probably the best thing they could do. So they have Jeffrey Simmons, they traded for Jermaine Johnson, and then were able to pick up John Franklin Myers, who is one of the best sack-producing defensive tackles over the last couple seasons. This is a fantastic grab. The Bengals were in on John Franklin Myers, but actually lost the bid battle to the Titans. I'm super high on this get. I think he is, in my opinion, he's probably the third or fourth best free agent in this entire class. This is a huge get. I would say this is probably the Titans' best signing of the entire day. David Edwards from the Bills to the Saints. I think it's great that they're bolstering the offensive line. David Edwards played guard and tackle for the Bills, mainly guard. Fixing that interior offensive line for the Saints is a big necessity. So helping your second-year quarterback, this is huge. Yeah, great. Mike Evans left the Buccaneers. It's a sad day for Buccaneers fans. Mike Evans is gone, and he's going to the 49ers to be a wide receiver 1 because he said he wants to win. From a Mike Evans perspective, I don't understand why you do this. You say you want to win, yet you're going to a team that has historically choked. Obviously, you are in another NFC team that has struggled to win its division, so I understand the frustration. But if it's not about the money like you say it is, go somewhere else. I like it. I like it as a fit. Brock Purdy gets a explosive, proven veteran wide receiver 1. Mike Evans has been out of the drama, which I think has been the biggest issue around Brock Purdy's career, having receivers that are drama-filled. Obviously with Debo previously and now Ayuk. And Ricky Pearsall, this gives him an opportunity to kind of sit back, because we saw when Ricky Pearsall was in wide receiver 1 position, it didn't. Sometimes he was flustered. Sometimes he didn't perform, which is fine. That happens. I think this is great for both sides. It's just a question mark to me. I did not expect this. I expected Mike Evans to maybe go to the Raiders, or I expected him to maybe go, if the Jets wanted to spend some of their money on Mike Evans, I could have seen that. If I could have seen Mike Evans go to the Seahawks, I could have seen him go. Even in that same division, go to the Cardinals. I saw him going a lot of places not named the San Francisco 49ers, but that's where he ended up. Alontae Taylor to the Titans, again, needed a corner, got a corner. This is a huge get. $20 million is a lot. You just spent $19.5 million on Wan'Dale Robinson. You just spent $21 million on John Franklin Myers, and then you double down on the defense, another $20 million a year on Alontae Taylor. And I think Alontae Taylor's great. He's fantastic. Definitely one of the better corners in this free agent class. So yeah, this is a good get. Saleh and this entire new coaching unit is really trying to establish a culture here. And I'm really excited to see what happens with the Titans this year. In a relatively dysfunctional AFC South, there's going to be a lot of question marks on all these teams. The Titans have an opportunity to really take a leap if Cam Ward follows that same culture. Boy Maffei from the Seahawks to the Bengals. I love this. This is the exact same situation we were in when we signed Trey Hendrickson. I say we because I am a Bengals fan. I have the chain. We all know this. This is the exact same situation 5 years ago when Trey Hendrickson signed from the Saints to the Bengals. He had a couple flashes. He had one decent year and then like some sporadic numbers. But he could get to the quarterback. He had the moves. He had the finesse. And then the Bengals signed Trey Hendrickson from the Saints to a killer contract, and he took that next step. This is the exact same situation where Maffei was a part of a rotating group of linebackers / edge rushers, and he was able to get the hurries, he was able to get the pressures, he was able to do all the things. Do I believe that this is at the same caliber as Trey Hendrickson? No. Do I think that it is the same situation? Most definitely. I think with him and Shamar, here's my thing. Him and Shamar Stewart both have the same aspect. They get to the quarterback by creating pressure, not by getting sacks. If both of them can do that, one of their numbers will go up. When you have both of those guys who are super high length in their arm, high finesse, high motor, someone will get to the quarterback. One of them, hopefully, will better themselves. All right. Next, Travis Etienne going from the Jags to the Saints. I did not expect this. This is out of left field. I did not expect the Saints to go and get a running back, especially based on their history of drafting running backs. Really did not expect this. But for the money, I kind of like it. You already got a guard. So you are bolstering the interior offensive lines, and now for your heavy pass throwing offense, you get a pass catching running back who has also been very reliable in short and long yard rushing. Yeah, I love this. This is fantastic. You're building around your young quarterback. Great. At a decent price. Jalen Watson, the second Rams acquisition from the Chiefs in the corner department. He and Trent McDuffie worked last year. Why not bring him back? Why not bring him to LA? You need a corner? You got a corner. Yeah, I think it's really as simple as that. Zion Johnson from the Chargers to Cleveland. I don't know how I feel about this one, because that entire Cleveland offensive unit was not good. The entire Chargers offensive unit last season was horrible. And I want to look at Zion Johnson specifically, because there were some things. He allowed 3 sacks, which is fine. He was a primary left guard. Again, the Browns need a left guard. Only 4 penalties, but he allowed 7 QB hits. 49th out of 81 guards in total QB pressures. So with Justin Herbert, you already have like a mobile-esque quarterback. With Shedeur, we saw him get flustered really easily. As much as I think the Chargers and the Browns both need offensive linemen, I don't really know how this is going to work, because the Browns tackles that Zion is going to be next to, because he plays the left side. Who's the Browns left tackle? I always forget. Browns left tackle. It's DeJuan Jones, because he made the I believe it's DeJuan Jones. Let me double check. This is the 2025. Let me look at the Browns website. Oh. Okay, well, never mind. Because I don't think they have Cam Robinson anymore, because I think Cam Robinson was their left tackle. Let me see if he's a free agent or not. Because I think, yeah, Cam Robinson was their left tackle because DeJuan Jones was hurt. So normally it's DeJuan Jones. Yeah, so he's going to be next to DeJuan Jones, who, like I said, coming off an injury. I would like to see it work out. I hope it works out, but we'll see. Kwity Paye from the Colts to the Raiders. Again, another Raiders get. This is huge for the Raiders. This is a fantastic get. I think that Kwity Paye, he did a lot of work for the Colts. I want to look at his statistics. He only had 4 sacks this year, but obviously before that he had 8 sacks, 9 sacks, 6 sacks. He's been very productive. Obviously he had a down year, but we look at the scheme. This is obviously a Lou Anarumo scheme. He does a lot of rotations, taking guys out of position. It makes sense why he played more snaps and got less sacks. It makes sense. Do I absolutely think that he needs to be on the field 100%? Absolutely not. Do I think he can produce? Absolutely. Especially when we talk about some of these other Raider free agent acquisitions. Everything's going to play out really, really well for the Raiders, and that is one of the cornerstone pieces. Sorry, I just am making sure nothing else out there. Oh, Rashid Rice. Yes. Rashid Rice got a $51 million deal to stay with the Seahawks for 3 years. Fantastic get. You traded a third and a fourth for him, or a fourth and a fifth. Anyway, you did what you needed to do. You won the Super Bowl, and guess what? You give the money to your punt returner / kickoff returner / wide receiver 3. Great. Fantastic. Can't be mad at that. And then Cordell Flott from the Giants. You're going to see a lot of Giants to the Titans because of Brian Dable. This is a really good get. Only one pick every 3 years, but one thing that he does is he plays a lot, and I believe, and I don't want to be quoted on this, I believe he's their nickel corner. I want to make sure that he's their nickel. I want to make let's see. Okay, never mind. He was a nickel who transitioned to the outside in 25. Okay. So I was right, just last year he transitioned to the outside corner, which is fine. But yeah, I think this is a good get for the Titans. Again, corner, the entire defense was a position of need for Tennessee last year. They went out and they got a very strong outside corner to pair opposite Alontae Taylor, plus adding pressure up front. The Titans are making a huge splash this year. Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, going from the Seahawks to the Chiefs. Fantastic. I mean, the Chiefs hit a home run with this one. They have been bolstering their interior offensive line. They have the same guys. There's chemistry there. What do? You go and you get the reigning Super Bowl MVP. What more can you want out of a team that had a down year, addressed that, and is looking to get back to where they once were? I think this is great. Quay Walker, fantastic grab. This is another guy on the Raiders who I think that this is huge. This is literally changing the culture in Las Vegas. You are getting guys who are pure playmakers at the linebacker position, because you can see down here, Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, got them both. This is a fantastic linebacker core. Huge. Brian Cook, easily for the money, best signing of the day, in my opinion. And I'm biased. I'm a Bengals fan. I know. The number one safety on the free agent market. Less than $41 million a year, and he's taking 18 of that up front. So, and it's only $14 million guaranteed. This is a very incentive-based, low-risk contract for the Bengals. This is huge. Their safety was a position of need. Geno Stone was atrocious for them last year. Now, to pair someone opposite Jordan Battle, who has been showing strides at that safety position, what do? You get a veteran run stopper, native Cincinnati player. He went to UC. This is a fantastic culture get, and this is a fantastic scheme get. I love this. And if I'm the Bengals, I double down and I take Caleb Downs. If he's available at 10, take Caleb Downs. Isaiah Likely to the Giants. I think this is a huge Harbaugh snag. You extend Andrews to the Andrews gets extended to the Ravens. You leave the Ravens. You snag Isaiah Likely, who you like more than Andrews. Huge get. Jackson Dart gets another blanket. This is fantastic. Likely has been outgrowing that tight end 2 role. He has the opportunity to show it in New York. I love this get. Kobe Bryant to the Bears. I think this is a little bit of an overpay. Kobe Bryant's good. He's very versatile. It's a lot of money. I would much rather have given him Where am I at? Right here. I much rather given him a lot less money because we look at Brian Cook, $250,000 more, and you're getting a lot more versatile play. I like Kobe Bryant, just not for the money. Jermaine Illuminor stays for the Giants. Fantastic. He was a key piece of your offensive line. Sounds great. Dramont Jones, former Buckeye, from the Ravens to the Pats. Huge get. They needed more pass rushing. They were successful last season. Vrabel likes his former Buckeyes. They get one more. Fantastic. Although New England has been slow to be active this free agency, there's a lot of guys still in play for New England. Tremaine Edmonds going from Chicago to New York for only $36 million. You're telling me this all-pro linebacker is getting 12 a year? Sign me up. That's awesome. They needed a linebacker. This is a great get for the Giants. Nakobe Dean, like I said, Nakobe Dean, 12 mil. Same thing as Tremaine Edmonds. He leaves the Eagles, pairing up with Quay Walker. I think this is huge. This is fantastic. Because they're not paying Max Crosby, the Raiders can do a lot more, and they're paying a lot more guys who can be complementary instead of just Max Crosby and friends. So this is awesome. Jalen Naylor going from the Vikings to the Raiders. I think this is awesome. He was I would say he was the flashiest receiver last season for the Vikings. So pairing him up with the rookie Fernando Mendoza is going to be huge. I think that establishing someone who can be a deep ball threat, who can be a versatile threat, great, fantastic. Joseph Osai getting signed for $34.5, I think is an overpay. I'll say it first, because if I'm the Bengals, I'm not paying that. But do I think that he's explosive? Do I think that he has improved? Absolutely. I definitely think that this is a great get. For the Jets, it's just a little too much money, but I understand you have to replace Jermaine Johnson. You traded him away. I get it. I really do. Jalen Thompson from the Cards to the Cowboys. I think this is good. The Cowboys did need a safety. They missed out on Kobe Bryant. They missed out on Brian Cook. However, they went out and they get the rising star in Jalen Thompson, and he gets the money he deserves out of it. Isaac Sumalo went to the Cards? I didn't read that one yet. Okay, that's awesome. The Cardinals need interior line help. This is great. How much did he get? 31.5. That's not bad. Yeah, I really like that. The one interior move I don't like that is underneath here is Josh Simpson, but we'll get back to that. I'll look at his stats. Isaac. No, is it? How do you pronounce that? It's Seu Malo. Oh, no, wait. All right. Let me look at his PFF. Yeah, no penalties, 3 sacks allowed, only 1 QB hit allowed, and only 15 pressures, which was 16th overall last season. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic get for the Cardinals. Good job, Cards. You did something right. I'm gonna minimize this actually, so it doesn't keep popping up. Okay. Eric Stokes re-signing, I think, is good. He performed decently well for the Raiders, so keeping a corner for $10 million a year is never a bad option. John Simpson, I don't like. He's an older guard who has some injury problems, as well as he has poor statistics last year. I don't really like this, especially when the Ravens have a ton of issues in free agency, or not free agency, in the offensive line. So don't really love it. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm getting a call. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, guys. I got a call from my sister. Anyway, let's continue. Yeah, I don't like John Simpson. I believe he's 30. No, he's 28. Okay, so he's 28. Maybe not as old as I thought he was, but given his, he's bounced around. Linemen who bounce around for me are like, it's kind of hard to, it's hard to really establish yourself. And I guess given his measurables with the Jets this past season, and I get it, it's the Jets, not a great unit all around. That worries me a little bit because the Ravens have historically had problems with linemen. So it could pan out, it could not. Tyler Biadza, or Biadza, however you pronounce that. New center going to the Chargers. Yeah, great. Let me look at his measurables because I'm not familiar with them. Tyler, PFF. Let's look. So out of all centers, he had 3 penalties, 3 sacks allowed. Not great because when they're credited to the center, it's not what you want. No QB hits allowed, 21 pressures. So he was 30th out of 40 centers in pressures. Not something you like to see, truth be told. But I think given the other Chargers unit, if they can get Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt back to back to healthy, the interior starts to shape up. Hopefully this is a good signing. I liked him when he was in Dallas, so we'll see. We'll see how it works out. Again, this is one that I'm not super duper high on, but we'll see how it works out. Cade Otton re-signed a 3-year $10 million each year, so 3-year $30 million. I think that's fine. Cade Mays, this is going to be a huge get for the Lions. This guy is agile. He is the first blocker out. That's one of the reasons why Rico Dowdle had so much success. He was a monster in the run blocking. Jahmyr Gibbs, now that he's not splitting snaps with David Montgomery, this is a huge get for the Lions. I am really happy for them getting Cade Mays at this price. Reed Blankenship. Wait, hold on, timeout. I didn't see this one either. Reed Blankenship, 3-year, 24. That's pretty good. That's an underrated signing. I think with the Texans' heavy secondary already, adding a guy like Reed Blankenship is really good. I think Blankenship does a lot, and he did a lot for the Eagles. This is a huge Swiss Army knife get. I think this is awesome. Charlie Kolar to the Chargers is something where another question mark, because Gadsden looked like he was getting a lot of production and he was improving and he was developing. I get the Charlie Kolar was also improving with the Ravens. I understand that. But that much money when you have a rookie currently kind of makes no sense to me. It's nice. It'll be good for Herbert, but it's one of those things where I'm like, did we need this? Could we have put this money somewhere else? But I mean, for the price, it's not horrible. I think this is fine. Josh Jobe re-signed for 3-year, $24 million. I think is great for the price. Keeping what of that secondary you can together, I think is awesome. Tim Settle reuniting back with Washington for only $8 million a year, I think is, for $8 million a year, I think is awesome. Bolstered the interior. Cool. Danny Bellinger, again, I said you're going to see a lot of Giants to Titans moves. I think this is also a good get. The Titans need a true playmaker at tight end, and we saw Danny Bellinger do more of that in his year with the Giants. I think this is awesome. It also gives the room for Theo Johnson to be the true tight end too. So it'll help his progression as well. I think this is great. Demario Davis going to the Jets, I think is a huge get. He is older, but he's still very productive for the money. I think it's a little much for a 37-year-old linebacker, but is what it is. He's going to be a true leader on that defense, especially with all these new pieces. The Jets are trying to form something, and I think that this is a good start. D. Alford going to the Bills. I love this move. D. Alford was everywhere for the Falcons this season. That secondary was a monster. I really cannot wait to see him in Buffalo because I think he can hopefully take the next step. If he can take the next step, he's going to be a great ball hawk. He had 3 interceptions this season, which doesn't seem like a lot, but per his previous years of production, insanely massive jump. He looked very good this year in a contract year. I hope the Bills work out for him. And if not, you made $21 million. Chris Tonga. Is it Chris or Cryas? I don't know. From Pats to the Chiefs. Another interior defensive lineman move for the Chiefs. They need some help with Chris Jenkins on the interior. So this is a good get. Arden Key from the Titans to the Colts. I love this move as a edge translation, moving away from pay to Key. I think these are great. It says $20 million. It's incentive based. I think only 11. Is this the guaranteed money right here? Let me look. Yeah, guaranteed money. So only 11 mil is guaranteed. Where are we at? Right here. Only 11 mil is guaranteed. I think this is fantastic. Alex Anzalone, or Anzalone. Oh my God, I stuttered so bad there. I'm so sorry. Alex Anzalone to the Buccaneers is a great move. They need someone in that middle of the defense. They also need corners and edge rushers, but I guess we'll get there when we get there. This is still a good move for the money, especially for the money. It's a great move. Amik Robertson. The Titans have had so much trouble with corner this year, and I'm really not high on Amik Robertson just because he's so small. And if memory serves me right, I want to look at his age. Amik Robertson. He is 27. He's 5'9" and 180 pounds. You cut Emmanuel Forbes for being that small, and he can't produce. So as much as I think he's decent, the Commanders are going to expect more out of him. And they just can't do that. Anyway, I don't truly love this move, but it is what it is. They needed a corner, and they got a corner. So technically they're checking the box, but whatever. Alex Singleton resigns with the Broncos. Great. You're keeping what defense of that you can. Kenneth Gainwell. I think this is a great backup for Bucky Irving. They play very similarly, and Kenneth Gainwell has a lot more pure rushing potential than Rachaad White had. So I think this is awesome. Ryan Wright and Jordan Stout just had a punter battle of contracts. Jordan Stout from the Ravens to the Giants, again, makes sense. Follow John Harbaugh. I love that for the Giants, though. They get a really good punter. And same thing, Ryan Wright leaves the Vikings, goes to the Saints. This is another really good punter. Great for both these special teams. Tyler Algier is not a move I expected, but a move that I appreciated. The Cardinals had injuries with a lot of running backs this year. What do? They get a guy who's a hard-hitting, hard-running, goal-line runner. And they get him at just over $6 million a year. Only $8 million of it's guaranteed. Awesome. Fantastic. This is a great move. So now, you could draft Jeremiah Love at 3, or if things don't work out in the free agency world, you get an offensive lineman and you ride with Tyler Algier. And obviously, there's other running backs on the roster. We'll see where it goes, you know. Reggie Gillum going to the Patriots, I think, is a great move. The Patriots kind of play that hard-nosed football, so getting a true fullback back into this team is good. I think getting a guy who can kind of be that finesse runner blocker type of guy, especially with the offensive line woes of New England, is a good get. Travis Kelce's returning for another season, staying with Kansas City, $12 million. Can't really hate it, can't really love it, because you saw his production dip, but you also know it's fucking Travis Kelce. Roy Lopez going to the Cardinals. Again, another move I did not expect, but another move I appreciated. With Walter Nolan and his injuries his rookie season, I really, really, really hope that Roy Lopez is going to be just a rotational piece, but he's a solid backup option in case Walter Nolan goes down or, you know, someone else goes down. And obviously Calais Campbell, we don't know what's happening with him yet. He's 40. He signed a rental deal with the Cards. Could still be playable, could retire, who knows? So I think as it stands right now, value signing, it's a good signing. Malcolm Kuntz, great. You re-signed with the Raiders. You showed flashes last season. They just added to the defense, and you're coming back to kind of take that next step because Max Crosby's gone. Cool. Great. Neville Gallimore, he has such a funny name. I think for the money, this is a good get for the Bears. They needed some more interior defensive line help. Yeah, I think this is great. Kingsley, this is the guy I wanted for the Bengals. I wanted a rental deal for Cincinnati with Kingsley. Didn't happen. Obviously, the Jets are trying to fill their holes at the edge rush position, and they did it. This is good. This is a good grab for a veteran guy. Awesome. Vidarian Lowe from the Patriots to the 49ers. Again, we don't know what's going on with Trent Williams. We don't know what is going to happen. So it's going to be a little interesting to see how the 49ers handle the offensive tackle position. They're opening to trading Trent Williams, but who knows what's going to happen with him. James Pierre going from the Steelers to the Vikings on such a cheap deal sounds like fine on paper, but it scares me because I want to look at James Pierre real quick. He turns 30 right when the season starts, and he, been in Pittsburgh for 6 seasons, 4 INTs, 5 forced fumbles, decent tackle numbers, but, he's really more that rotating corner guy, and I feel like the Vikings, again, just need more than that out of him. So for the money, it's fine, but we'll see where it goes. Kenny Pickett going to Carolina, backup QB move. I don't really think anything of it. I would think the same thing if, Andy Dalton re-signed with Carolina, Alec Ingold following McDaniels to the Chargers, I think, is an awesome move. Getting Herbert, again, it's the same thing with the Patriots. Getting a fullback, that secondary rusher, blocker player is nice. So awesome. Mariota staying in Washington. That's great. John Ridgway staying in New Orleans. That's great. Gardner Minshew is going to serve as the backup for the Cardinals while Jacoby Brissett takes QB1 snaps. I think that this is great. Gardner Minshew is still recovering from his injury. No big deal. Case Keenum staying in Chicago. Great. He's a good veteran mentor for Caleb Williams. Dominique Robinson going to Texas is not something I thought about, but rotational edge piece. Sure, why not? Austin Hooper returning to the Falcons, I think is awesome. Cam Thomas going to the Falcons makes sense given the recent stuff with their edge rushers in the news. But we'll see how that goes. And I just got a note that former Lions QB Kyle Allen is signing a 2-year deal with the Buffalo Bills. He is replacing Mitch Trubisky. Mitch Trubisky also signed with the Titans. I think that might be down here in the ones with no money. LJ Collier re-signing with the Cards, fine. Nick Folk going to the Falcons makes sense. They had a lot of kicking troubles. Nick Folk, veteran kicker who has proven himself time and time again. Isaiah Hodgins staying in New York, I think that's awesome. He showed flashes last season. Great. Robert Rochelle staying in Carolina, I think that's awesome. Noah Fant signing a 2-year deal with the Saints. Again, getting these reliable tight end targets for these young quarterbacks, I think is always a good move. Noah Fant did have kind of an iffy year with the Bengals. He was productive, but there were some ball security issues. I think he'll be fine. So I do like this move for the Saints. And then we have a couple more moves here. Dennis Gardeck staying in Jacksonville, I think is fine. J.K. Dobbins staying in the Broncos. I think this was a predetermined move. Seeing how the running back market played out, I feel like you could have been a little more aggressive on maybe ETN. Kenneth Walker didn't sign for too much money. I definitely think the Broncos could have been a little bit more competitive. This feels like just a premeditated move. So I'm sure it's fine, but I feel like they could have been more aggressive, especially because they didn't re-sign Franklin Myers. And they cut Dre Greenlaw. Whatever. Zacchaeus going to the Falcons. I think any wide receiver going to the Falcons is good because they always have a trouble with finding that second guy after Drake London. So see what works. Larry Borum going to the Lions, another offensive line move that I really appreciate. The Lions needed offensive line help. They got offensive line help. A Caleb Evans staying with the Panthers, I think is fine. I wasn't too high on him, so that's fine. Austin Schlottman going to Tennessee, I think, is another really impressive move with Dable and his recruiting. Getting him into a system where hopefully we can see some growth from some of these offensive linemen. It's only a 1-year deal. I think actually it updated on Twitter where it's a 2-year deal. So we'll see how it goes. And there's still a lot of good free agents that the Titans could sign to help the offensive line, but we'll see where everything goes. Anyway. And then finally, Buffalo Bills to Titans, Mitch Trubisky. Get a decent backup quarterback who can help Cam Ward with some maybe he's a veteran quarterback. He's been around the league. Hopefully he can serve as like a great locker room guy, but we'll see where it goes. And I just want to scroll up to make sure there's nothing else that has happened. I think I talked about all these guys. Isaiah Lekovich, Isaac Stokes. Yeah, I don't think anything else has been confirmed. I'm going to refresh the page one more time. I think that's everything so far. I expect it to kind of open up tonight, and then tomorrow we'll see more stuff. But obviously, the tamper window is the biggest part of free agency. And as I'm scrolling on Twitter, the Steelers are signing Rico Dowdle. Did not see that one. That is, wow. And that was 22 minutes ago, so let me see if there's anything else. Kendrick Bourne also went to the Cardinals. I like that move. Braxton Jones is going back to the Bears on a 1-year deal. I think that's good. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Let me see if Ari has posted any more stuff. There's Rico. Oh, the Browns signed Quincy Williams. Okay, now the Jets getting multiple guys on defense makes sense. Yeah, okay. It's a decent get. Where's Shefty at? Shefty? That's Dov. I don't like Dov. Okay. I think that's everything. As it stands. As it currently stands, I think that's everything. Who knows? I'll have my phone up the entire time, so if we get, if we see things, that happen, then we will update. I'll try to update you as much as I can. All right. So, here, top or best. So I'm looking at the best combine performances of this season because I want to talk about some risers and some fallers, and then we're going to do a mock draft. So I have to really zoom in here. Holy shit. So when we look at the 40-yard dash, one thing that stood out is obviously Lorenzo Styles. There's been a lot of talk with these Ohio State guys and their speed and their measurables. And then when we go down here, Jeff Caldwell, I think, was the best wide receiver score for the athletic score, or the RAS, the relative athletic score. I think it's relative athletic score. Let me look it up. I don't want to be wrong. RAS score. Relative athletic score. Okay, I was correct. So yeah, I think I want to look at his profile because I think he scored the best athletic score out of all wide receivers. Yeah. First athletic score, 27th in production, obviously, but Cincinnati did not have a great offensive season toward the second half there. So, unfortunately. So it is what it is, but he's one of my guys who's a riser. And yeah, Bryce Lance, brother of Trey Lance, we heard about. Zachariah Branch ran a 4.35, who we knew he was fast. Dylan Theneman came out and ran a 4.35. Jeremiah Love ran a 4.36. There was a lot of like fast guys. Skylar Bell ran a 4.4. Barry Brown ran a 4.4. There's a lot of guys who ran very well at this combine who ended up like rising. And the two guys I want to talk about are Sonny Styles and did he not run? He might not have ran. But Sonny Styles ran a 4.46. Fastest linebacker this combine, and Sonny Styles is shooting up the draft boards. As well as we saw Anthony Hill Jr., who ran a 4.51. Anthony Hill has obviously been one of the more sought linebacker recruits. I still think he does a lot of stuff very well. Sonny Styles, again, splits. And then Sonny Styles with a 43.5-inch vertical. Broad jump, was also Sonny Styles at 11.2. 3-cone. Jacob Rodriguez actually did that the best. Jacob Rodriguez is a guy who I would maybe be a little higher on than others because of his footwork. Sonny Styles did a 7.09, which was 6th best, but and then in the shuttle, in the 20-yard shuttle, Jack Kelly, like I said, Jacob Rodriguez, in those like shorter yard moments, Jacob Rodriguez really shines. And then in the bench press, it was Josiah Trotter from Missouri. He did 27 reps. When we look at some of these guys, like these wide receivers, Deion Burks is a guy who stands out to me because he did 26 reps. He was really, really fast. He had the second best wide receiver rank. 5'10", 180. Want him to be, sometimes these guys are just a tiny bit taller, but those shorter guys still have a position in the league. I don't think he's day one, obviously. And then, Jordan Tyson is up there with, the best wide receiver prospect when people talk about him, Carnell Tate, or Mekhi Lemon out of USC. He scored very, very well. Obviously, 4th best production, and then 15th on the athletics test, which you think might not be high, but given his size, he does rather well. But Bryce Lance was doing a lot of stuff out here as well. When we look at some of these others, like I said, Jeff Caldwell had the best measurables. Vertical, again, Deion Burks, so he's shorter, but he 42.5. Bryce Lance, 41.5. These guys have, and then his 10-yard split, a 1.48. I mean, come on, that's insane. Zachariah Brains, like I said, run the 4.3. Jacoby Lane running a 4.47. I'm trying to look at like Carnell Tate ran a 4.5, but we know in game he's a lot faster. And then the tight ends, Kenyon Sadiq scored super well. Kenyon Sadiq's draft stock for me rocketed. I mean, like absolutely rocketed. I think he has top 15 potential, if not top 10. But we're going to talk about that when we get into the draft stuff. Eli Stowers, I think, is a second-round tight end. Absolutely. In my opinion, he's tight end 2 of this class. He scored, like I said, super well. He was the biggest producer. 6'4", 240, and he ran a 4.5? 4.51. I mean, come on, dude. This is insane. For defensive tackles, Zane Durant, a 4.75. And this dude is massive. 6'1", 290. Dude, he's huge. That's because he's stout. Like, normally these defensive tackles that are taller obviously can run because they have longer legs. This dude is built. He's a bowling ball. Caleb Banks ran a 5, which, as someone who's projected to be this super heavy hitting, like, that's good for his size. 6'6", 327. Like, that's normal. And obviously with his injury past, like, I'm just saying this, Zane Durant ran like a motherfucker. QBs, you can't really do that off of a lot of these athletics because, the Arkansas quarterback scores really well. And then we have Haynes King, who does the other stuff really well, but the quarterbacks don't bench press. So it's going to be interesting how everything goes. And then for the last thing, the running backs, like I said, Jeremiah Love ran that 4.36. Mike Washington out of Arkansas ran a 4.33. Mike Washington is a guy who I thought was kind of underseen because of his time at Arkansas. But that athleticism score first. these guys who have these really high athletics score really well tend to make the shift better because they can adjust better because of their pure athleticism. And I think that Mike Washington is going to be a guy that gets picked up this season in the draft and is going to make a team very happy as that rotational running back. So those are just some players I wanted to touch on. However, now we are going to do a mock draft. And I was last updated March 4th, so 5 days ago. And it has all of the updated picks. We're just going to do one round. So no picks for the Ravens, Colts, Falcons, Packers, or Jags, which is fine. And we are going to do this within the mind of the current free agent acquisitions as they have come. So let's do this. And I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit more here. Perfect. So no trades. First off, Fernando Mendoza. Easy. They're building around the team to draft Fernando Mendoza. The Jets. I still think they go linebacker here. As much as I think they could go Reuben Bain, they got a lot of edge production in free agency. They also brought in Demario Davis. But on another point, you have to replace Quincy Williams. Okay, fine. Who is that everything position player for you? Arvell Reese. We've seen it. He gets the production. He hardly misses tackles. He plays D-line, slot, corner, box. He can play it all. Makes sense. Now, this is where we have our first run-in. It could be Jeremiah Love. But you're working on a backup quarterback. You don't have a plan for quarterback after Kyler Murray. You have, obviously, Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew. Safe to say that the Cardinals will be in the market for a quarterback next draft, not this draft. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, do I want the Cardinals to draft an offensive lineman for the future? Or do I want them to draft a weapon for the future? Given the contracts and how it lays out, I am having the Cardinals draft a lineman for the future and Francis Mayugoa. I think he is the best offensive lineman prospect. And what I mean by that is he is the most versatile. I think that when we get down to it, Spencer Fano is the better true tackle. But I think Mayuaga has better measurables. I think he has a lot more ability to be fluid in an offensive scheme. I definitely can see him playing more in this Cardinals role where things might be a little more wishy-washy than maybe in like a Browns or a Jets where we need like a true guy at this position. So I think I want him in Arizona. Now, when I look at what the Titans have done, they got a defensive tackle who can mainly play edge. They got corners. They got offensive linemen. And they got a wide receiver. What did they not get? A running back. I like Tony Pollard. He has not produced the way people thought he would. And what I mean by that is, I know Tony Pollard was like I think he was top 10 in yards this season. Tony Pollard stats. Yeah, he's been a 1,000-yard rusher both of these seasons with the Cowboys. Or not the Cowboys, the Titans. Don't get me wrong. He is still producing. But when you saw him produce 1,007 and 1,005, you thought he would have a bigger boost with more carries. And he was also dealing with some injury stuff this season. While I like Tony Pollard, while I think he is still a good running back, it is hard to deny Jeremiah Love and what he does, which is literally everything. I have the Titans going Jeremiah Love. I think that getting him, this is not the music I want for this. Oh my God. Let me skip this. Why is this song... Dude, this song's like 7 minutes long. Sure, we can play this one. Now the Giants. The Giants just lost a corner. They signed Isaiah Likely. They have... What else did they do? They lost a tight end. So they gained a tight end, lost a tight end. They lost a wide receiver. There's a lot of things I think the Giants could do. There's a lot of things I think they should do. If I am the Giants, you kept Isaiah Hodgins. Malik Neighbors is coming back from injury. You need another weapon. And when I look down, Jordan Tyson, you could argue Jordan Tyson, but he's trending down due to some of his measurables. You could go Carnell Tate at this spot, but 6'3", 195. You could go him, or you could go Kenyon Sadiq. Obviously not Kenyon Sadiq anymore because of the recent placement of Isaiah Likely. You could also go defense. I think the Giants need a lot of things on defense. They signed... Who did they sign? They signed a linebacker. Giants signed linebacker. Yeah, Tremaine Edmonds. So they signed Tremaine Edmonds, which is a great get for them. But you want to think about, okay, Sonny Styles, he performed really, really well at the Combine. He's been rising. He's a great, great, great athletic guy. Do we want him to pair alongside Tremaine Edmonds? Or do we go wide receiver? Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I think you go linebacker. As much as a wide receiver would be flashy and fun for Jackson Dart, the one thing that you need to do is be competitive on defense. We saw the Giants were able to be competitive on offense this year. The defense, however, not as much. And you're already losing production on the corner side of the ball, on the deeper side of the ball. So, yeah, I would say you want someone in the middle of the field. I think Sonny Styles here makes a lot of sense. For the Browns, you need offensive line help, and like I said, they got some of it. They got a guard. They lost Devin Bush. That's another acquisition that I forgot. Devin Bush is gone from the Browns. I don't know if I mentioned that one. Anyway, so you basically are the same at the the linebacker position, but one thing you do need is a wide receiver. The Browns need a wide receiver badly. So this is where I have the first wide receiver going, and it's going to be Carnell Tate. They love their Ohio State guys. The Commanders also need defensive help. They need corner help. They need linebacker help. They need edge help. Out of all of those things, I would say they need edge help. So here is where you have the question. Do you value Ruben Bain more? Or do you value David Bailey more? A guy who has shown to get sacks and who played outside tackle. Or do you want Ruben Bain, a guy who can kind of play over tackle, outside tackle, and play inside? It's what you value more. Given the signing that they just did, I feel like they'd pivot to Ruben Bain here, kind of a guy who can shift. The Saints had a couple acquisitions. Like I said, they got Noah Fant, so they got themselves another tight end. They got themselves an offensive lineman. I think that's great. They did lose DeMario Davis. So they got Travis Etienne. So if I'm the Saints, I'm looking to build the defense. My mother is calling me. I have to answer her real quick. Sorry about that, I'm back. It's so weird. Whenever I start to do stuff, my family always wants to talk to me. Anyway, I think the Saints are definitely in an interesting situation here, but they got a guard. They could use another wide receiver, but they also need a guy who can replace Quincy Williams. And when we look at the analysis, we see Peter Woods playing that D-line, if Jeremiah Love falls, and then obviously all these wide receivers, or David Bailey. Now, I don't really think they need David Bailey. I don't think they need another edge. I think they need another linebacker. CJ Allen, I don't know. He is decent. He's a bigger linebacker, so you could play him at that defensive edge position. But I honestly think they would go wide receiver here. And who I'm going to give them is Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon, I think, fits this scheme better. He's a little bit bigger than Jordan Tyson, if memory serves me correctly. Jordan Tyson is like 5'10". Yeah, 6'2", 200. I'm sorry. No. Mekhi Lemon is shorter than Jordan Tyson. I like Mekhi Lemon more because he's faster. That's why. I was mixing up my reasons. I like Mekhi Lemon more. He's a very fast receiver, and he's a very skilled receiver. He's got very good footwork. I think getting a very experienced guy like that makes a lot of sense for this team. So I have Mekhi Lemon going here. Now the Chiefs, this is where we run into a ton of problems because they have lost a lot of free agents. A ton. And I think that you lost both your corners. You lost Brian Cook. There's a lot of things that you lost. But you got Kenneth Walker. So you don't need a running back. One thing that I think they will want to get, though, is a replacement for Juwan Taylor, because they did not address that in this draft, or in this free agency so far. They have not gotten an offensive lineman. So when I look at what they need a corner, bad. And they also need a safety, and they also need a wide receiver. The Chiefs need a lot of stuff, but they're in a bridge year. But you can bridge your way to a receiver, especially with how loaded this free agent class is. You can bridge your way to potentially a safety, because Charles Cross. Is it Charles Cross? Nick Cross, excuse me. Charles Cross is an offensive lineman. Nick Cross is still available in free agency. So it's hard to say. If I'm the Chiefs, you just lost Trent McDuffie. You need a corner. Bad. I think Mansour Delane goes to Kansas City. And then if I'm the Chiefs, the game plan, or if I'm the Bengals, the game plan doesn't change. While you got Cook, you need another good safety. Jordan Battle is serviceable, but I'm drafting Caleb Downs. The Dolphins need a bunch of things, but they also just traded Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think it's not crazy to say that Dylan Theneman goes to Miami to replace replace Minkah Fitzpatrick's role. The Cowboys need a edge rusher. They went and got a safety. They went and re-signed Javonte Williams. I think David Bailey, seeing how he falls, it's best available. The Rams went and got a cornerback. They got two of them. So you go best available, you get Spencer Fano, and then the Raiders are back on the clock again. You already got Fernando Mendoza. You could go ahead and just get Jordan Tyson right here, and that would be an amazing get. Or you could get interior offensive line, which is also very true. The Raiders need interior offensive line, but you just signed Tyler Linderbaum. So if you wanted to get Ione, you could. Or you could go corner and get Jermon McCoy to pair with Eric Stokes. There's a lot of different positions they could go here, and I don't really see a wrong one. Obviously, don't go CJ Allen. You just signed 2 other linebackers. Could go Akeem Mesidor to replace that wrecking power of Max Crosby, but you also just paid 2 edge rushers. I think given the position that the Raiders are in, they're trying to build for the future. So I think going Ione here makes a lot of sense. I want to look at the Raiders offensive line. Raiders. I just want to look. Obviously they have Jackson Powers Johnson. Colton Miller is their standout tackle, and then Dylan Parham. I want to look at his PFF grade real quick. Because if he's got a decent PFF grade, then, we'll see. 5th. Not great. And he played left guard, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, he played left guard. Let's look. Ione is the left guard. It kind of makes a lot of sense. They just paid Tyler Lindenbaum. Why wouldn't you just bolster the offensive line? So I think this is good. Let's do that. I think that Fernando Mendoza working with Trey Tucker and Josh Naylor and Brock Bowers is a great core. You could obviously get more, but the rookie on rookie connection sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. And I think if you have a 2nd round pick, let's go for the true future. Because now, if you suck, you can really get a premier wide receiver next season, whoever you want. Or whoever you draft. You can take this year to be on the fringe, or you cannot. They could go wide receiver here. The Buccaneers need a lot. They did re-sign Cade Otton, but they lost corners. They lost but they got Alex Anzalone. It's going to be difficult for them. They need an edge rusher, but they also need a linebacker, but they also need a corner. And here I have them going Jermon McCoy. They need like an actual corner. What the fuck is this music, dude? This is so bad. Okay, this is 10 minutes. The Jets already picked Arvell Reese. They've bolstered the defense. I think here is where they go wide receiver, and this is where Jordan Tyson goes. The Lions did very well to bolster their offensive line, but they need some defensive line help. I would definitely see... I could see a lot of people going here, like a Cassius Howell, like a Keldrick Folk. There's a lot of people I could see go here. I could see Monroe Freeling go here too. Monroe Freeling is a very large man. But honestly, I think they need more production from the edge position, and especially they did just lose Alex Anzalone. So I think they're going to go CJ Allen here, someone who can play in the box or in the slot, someone who can be that more versatile kind of guy. So I think CJ Allen's going to go to replace Alex Anzalone, kind of that everyman role that he had. The Vikings haven't made too many moves, but one thing they are going to need is, and I just want to confirm with my suspicions, Vikings. I want to look at their offseason moves just real quick. They signed James Pierre, and they re-signed Jalen Redmond but they lost Naylor, and so they lost a wide receiver and a punter, and then they cut Aaron Jones, and then both Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave. So out a ton of money But losing both of those defensive linemen is going to hurt. They're going to need a defensive lineman. Obviously, no Jeremiah Love. I'm not drafting a running back here in the first round whose name is not Jeremiah Love. I'm going Caleb Banks here. Carolina Panthers, they went and got an edge in Jalen Phillips. They're in the bidding for Devin Lloyd right now. It's hard to see where that situation is. Obviously, if they don't get Devin Lloyd, then they might go linebacker here. But they also need, I feel like, it's really hard to see what position they could go. They could also go tight end. They could go tight end, best available. I'll see where that goes. And I think, honestly, Kenyon Sadiq could go up here at number 9. He could go where he's needed. I think just the Chiefs don't want to do that. They have more pressing needs, so a corner makes more sense for them right now. But he could go at number 9. I think that the Panthers are probably going to go. It's hard to say. I honestly think they're going to go D-line, and I think they're going to go Peter Woods. So in my mock, the Cowboys already went David Bailey. I would like to see them do something else on the defensive standpoint. I want to look at their moves as well. Let's look at the Cowboys moves real quick. So they got Jalen Thompson today, and they made a trade for someone else. Oh man, I didn't see that Dane Belton left the Giants. Okay. Let me look up Cowboys. Let's look here. Okay. I know that they also made a trade for Rashad Gary. So that's something I forgot about. Maybe they might not draft David Bailey, but I mean, if he's there, I'm still taking him. Something else I would like to see the Cowboys do, obviously with the departure of Trayvon Diggs, is get another corner. And I think this is most definitely where Avion Terrell could go. The Steelers signed Rico Dowdle. They traded for Michael Pittman, but they need a tackle. I think Monroe Freeling here absolutely goes. They could go interior offensive line, but that's kind of a reach at this standpoint. So Monroe Freeling makes a lot of sense. Best available. Chargers, again, it's offensive line or bust for this Chargers team. They could go Caden McDonald. They do need defensive line help. And they could go edge because they did lose their top edge rusher. As much as I love Akeem Mesidor, how well he's graded, how much he produced in the sack department, I think Keldrick Falk is a better choice because of his age, and I think because of his height. He's a lot taller, and he's 4 years younger than Akeem Mesidor. So I think Falk here makes sense. The Eagles have lost Nakobe Dean. They have lost Reed Blankenship. And they also have not re-signed Dallas Goedert. I don't know if they're going to re-sign Dallas Goedert. But they need a tight end. And with the departure of A.J. Brown, they might just need a weapon point blank, period. Sadiq would go here. Now the Browns, I said they draft Carnell Tate. They need some form of offensive line help. And this is where I will take a backup tackle. And Blake Miller could absolutely be here, that right tackle. But I am looking more at Caden Proctor here, just because of his age. He's larger, and he's at the left tackle position, a position where the Browns had trouble last season. The Chicago Bears signed Kobe Bryant at safety, so safety's not a huge concern for them. They signed kind of a decent defensive lineman, and then obviously lost Tremaine Edmonds. But I think did they sign a different linebacker? Bears free agency. They signed Devin Bush. Okay, that's what it was. They signed Devin Bush. They retained one of their. They re-signed Braxton Jones, and then they signed Kobe Bryant. So they already address major needs. So it's what you value. It's like, again, what do you value when you look at it? If I'm the Bears, and I know Kobe Bryant had a lot of success, but the one thing that they haven't attacked is they haven't attacked the corner position, because there were some corner questions. And then obviously, there's some other defensive line position questions. One thing I do kind of question myself is what they're going to really focus on more so. And I think it's going to be defensive line. Given who's left, I'm going to take Caden McDonald. The Bills have not picked up a wide receiver. They still need a wide receiver. They could go edge, but they went and got a corner already. They lost an offensive lineman. I feel like it's really hard for me to see anyone else except Casey Concepcion. And that's a guy who I've mocked there all the time. 49ers got Mike Evans. So that's their thing done. I think they need an edge out of everything. And so, again, it's between Cassius Howell and Akeem Mesidor. At this stage, I'll go Akeem Mesidor. The Texans, they traded for David Montgomery. They signed a safety. They've done a decent amount of work. One thing that I would like them to maybe get is another interior offensive lineman, and I think they got one already. Let me look. Texans. So they re-signed Sheldon Rankins as well. They brought in Reed Blankenship, Dominique Robinson. I think that's everything. Yeah, obviously Ed Ingram, like I said, he's a guard, so they're bringing him back for 3 more years, which is good. I would have went McNeil Warren here if they didn't go Blankenship. So one thing that I would like to see them get is another tackle, because since the departure of Laramie Tunsil, there's been some questions to tackle. Blake Miller is definitely a choice here. I don't know if I would draft him this high. I guess, I don't know. I'm shocked how far Caleb Lamau has dropped. We can go Blake Miller here. And then the Chiefs have the Rams' next pick. So I said that they will take Delane here, and I think they're going to double down, and they're going to... I think they honestly could double down on the safety, but again, they haven't signed an offensive lineman to replace Juwan Taylor. And Juwan Taylor, I believe, played right tackle. Let me look. Let's look. He played right tackle. So, definitely you can look at this tackle from ASU and be like, yeah, we can draft him, because you could get McNeil Warren, and I think that's another great get, because you did lose Brian Cook, excuse me. But you also need an offensive line. I just feel like having your right tackle being, Patrick Mahomes' strong side, recovering from an ACL tear, I don't think that's something you want to just let sit. But then again, you also need DB help horrendously. And McNeil Warren had a lot of missed tackles this season, but he played a lot more run defense snaps than he normally does. So it makes sense. you could do a lot of things here, and he played a lot in the box and deep, mainly in the box. It's really hard to say, but that's what Brian Cook was that run defender. So honestly, I mean, it makes total sense. So the Broncos re-signed J.K. Dobbins, like I said, felt like a really premeditated move. But you know who they cut Dre Greenlaw, but they also lost Franklin Myers. And I think here is where you look at a true edge rusher to kind of replace that big body. And I'm looking at Cassius Howell here, 6'2", 250. He is a mean wrecking machine. You could go TJ Parker, 6'3", 260, so he's a little bit bigger. Personally, I value the sack production more because that's what Franklin Myers was. So I think Cassius Howell here makes a ton of sense. And then New England needs offensive line help badly. I think they're going to go interior offensive line because they need a guard. Obviously, they need a tackle as well. But I think getting a guard focused is better for them. And then they're going to go, I think, is it Pregnon? Let me look at the Pats offensive line. I'm doing this as I'm talking, by the way. There's like no premeditated anything for this. Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, who's a rookie. Morgan Moses on the right side. I just want to look at the... Yeah, I feel like they could use inside help, but maybe I'm talking out of my ass here. And then the Seahawks, obviously you lost Kenneth Walker. Huge. You re-signed Shaheed. You kept one of your corners, but you lost a safety. You lost a linebacker / edge rusher to the Bengals. So there's a lot of holes that you really need to fill, and there's not really a running back here I would take at the end of the first round, but there is an edge rusher here I would take at the end of the first round, and that's TJ Parker. So this is the draft as it stands, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so we can make this the thumbnail. But, and this is totally based on the first day. There's stuff that can change. There could be players that work, players that don't. We will absolutely see. But yeah, I think honestly this is where it ends up being. But yeah. So I'm going to download this and get this uploaded to YouTube. I appreciate everyone for being here. If you're watching this on YouTube, I appreciate you for watching. Please let me know if I did something wrong, or if you disagree. But I'm gonna get out of here.